What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson, I'm your host. So betting trends. We'll look ahead to week 15. We continue to look ahead to week 15 from a gambling perspective. John Breach and I gave you the early odds. Joining me to talk about some trends from the upcoming week. Tyler Sullivan, aka Sully. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Will? How you doing?
I'm good. Lovely Tuesday, I think. I'm sure it's nice outside.
Yeah, it's freezing up here, but
oh, really?
Oh yeah, we already got snow. It's all great up here in the Northeast.
Let's see. Yeah, it's like 48 here. Not bad. Yeah. Pretty cold for here, honestly. A little cold spell. We've had a hot winter there, or hot fall into winter, I guess. Technically, if you want to be a jerk about the seasonal dates. Anyway, let's dive into some trends. Worth noting, we are currently, speaking of freezing, points are frozen, Sully, because this is currently the third highest single season under rate since 1986. In 1986, unders hit at 58%, a 58% clip, which is outrageous. Like, if you can pick NFL games at a 58% clip, you're crushing it. If you're hitting, like, if you just bet every under in 1986, you hit it 58%. In 1991, 55%, currently tied with 2022 through 14 weeks. 55% of the games this season have gone under. Last year, 54% of the games went under, which is, I don't know, man. It's kind of an interesting trend to think about. The last two seasons that we've seen a ton of unders. I mean, I would be interesting to dive into it, and it's really something you have to look at after the season, I think. But like, obviously the unders that people would be betting now in 2022 are much higher than 1986, right?
Sure.
Like, but I'd be curious to see, like, is it possible to like break it down? It is possible. And I mean, I wonder what it would look like relative to, sort of like a ERA plus type of thing. Like,
right.
Like what numbers are we going under? Because if you're going under like 50, if you're going under like totals that are in the 50s constantly, that's one, that just sort of speaks to an inflated totals most of the week. Or is this something that's like offensive line related or quarterback play related? Just kind of an interesting trend to think about.
I would say one of my questions would be maybe contact and practice. That's obviously reduced over the last few years. I wonder if that maybe creates a little bit of sloppy play on Sundays, and maybe that's something along those lines. And you said over the last 2 years, isn't that right when the 18-game schedule opened up? I don't know if that's line of demarcation there, but that could be something to look into too.
One other thing too that would be, and I think Pete Prisco mentioned this on the Picks pod a few weeks ago, because this has been trending this way towards the unders, is that with the advent of more not spread offenses, but more up tempo spread, like four wide, out of shotgun, you have these. Well, what happened was, as that was occurring, as that was becoming more commonplace across the entire league, teams have started shifting to more hybrid defenders and putting out more, you have nickel is more common than, three wide receiver sets and nickel defenses are basically the base packages now, right? And so if you have that, what we've seen is sort of maybe like a regression back towards power run games. Patriots do it, Saints have tried to do it, and not necessarily because they wanted to, but I mean, a lot of teams have. And so, you sort of wonder, is that a factor too, where you're burning more clock, more running of the football, et cetera, et cetera?
I'll give you one more before we get into the rest of the stuff. I mean, we have seen over the last few years coaches become more aggressive on fourth down. I mean, we saw it on Monday night. Cliff Kingsbury going for it in New England Patriots territory twice, not being able to succeed. In another world, those are 6 points being put on the board.
Interesting. Yeah, where you get, so not only that, but if you go for it in, let's say you're on the Patriots 35, right?
Or he went for more than two times, but two times.
Right. But I'm saying, like, normally you kick and you're adding points on the board. Yeah. Well, you're also giving the ball back to the Patriots. Now what happens is if you go for it and get it, you're extending your own drive, which means you may have more plays to burn clock. And if you don't get it, then all of a sudden you're putting them in, like, not super plus territory, but it's just like there's more clock being eaten up as a result of that. That's an interesting theory too. So something to think about. 11 teams, by the way, have clinched their win total already. Do we run through? I'll run through them real quick.
Go for it.
Eagles over. Duh. Vikings over. Nice. Seahawks over, Jets over, Bucks under, Packers under, Rams under, Broncos under. By the way, those last four, Colts under, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those double-digit win totals already clinched to the under, and not even like close to going over. I mean, the Bucks 11.5 is a laugh riot. Cardinals under 9 hit, Saints under 8.5. Those are all of those are already locked in. Another 12 teams in Week 15, Sully, can clinch their win total. The Chiefs can get their over, Cowboys over, Bengals over, Ravens over, Dolphins over, Commandos over, Giants over. They've already clinched the push there. Lions over, Falcons over 5. Wow, they've already clinched the push as well. Browns under, Raiders under, Texans under. Texans under 4.5. That's incredible. Maybe I'm Week 15 feels pretty early for 23 of 32 teams to have already locked in their win total, with another 3, I believe, capable of locking in a push. So you basically have like 26 of 32 teams. That's a lot. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that speaks to the parity or just.
I don't know. I feel like we talked about this over the summer a little bit, and it does feel like Vegas, the market, the odds makers are still trying to figure out these win totals for an 18-game schedule. Because I do remember us having a conversation over the summertime about how some of these win totals felt a little bit skewed, whether it would be too low or too high. I think most of it we were saying that they were kind of low. I mean, I think you were looking at Kansas. I remember
Kansas City was like, dude, if you're giving me 10.5 with Andy Reid, the only time he's like was last year is the only time he's never done it. He pushed it. Give it, I'll roll with it. Mentioned the Seahawks have already clinched their over of 7. I mean, blew past that one. Well, not blew past, but you get the point. They're 0-4, however. Their last 4 games against the spread, they played the division leading San Francisco 49ers as a 3.5-point home dog. The Niners, by the way, 4-0 in their last 4 games against the spread. Do you read anything into that trend specifically, Sully, with recent performance when you start to sort of look at this game?
Yeah, it does feel like these two teams are kind of
heading in an opposite,
going in an absolutely different
direction. They crossed a while ago. I feel like
I mean, it's just, we look now, obviously, at San Francisco with a little bit more of a wondering eye, because we don't know if this Brock Purdy thing's for real still. I mean, obviously, he looked great against Tampa last week. He's looked good over these last couple of weeks, but you just wonder, okay, is the bubble going to burst? Are things going to go awry? I don't necessarily foresee that happening. I think this game's going to be fascinating because you have San Francisco in a realistic shot to get the number 2 seed. And again, that doesn't mean as much as it did in years past, but for Seattle, this is the season. You have Detroit nipping at your heels. You're on the outside looking into the playoffs. Obviously, Washington and New York play each other, but this is as close of a must-win game as you can get. And I'm trying to find it right now. Historically, they have done well in this matchup with Pete Carroll as their head coach. They're where is it? They're 8-3-1 against the spread at home against the 49ers since Carroll, under Pete Carroll since 2010. So they do play well, but you got to throw the caviats out there. Obviously, a lot of that was with Russell Wilson. The injuries over the course of many years with the 49ers.
I know people who were born this year and only seen 1 year of football are confused by why you would be complimenting Russell Wilson, but we swear he used to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
And so, obviously, that, again, changes the calculus because, again, you can look at some of these trends and you have to kind of be smart about how you digest them because, 8-3-1 against the spread at home over the 49ers under Pete Carroll since 2010. That's great. But you have to throw those caveats out there. They had a different quarterback. The 49ers are in a different space. These two teams are playing differently coming into this game in 2022. I like the 49ers, but it does feel like, this could be a kitchen sink game for Seattle. And if they're getting 3.5 at home, that also is pretty interesting.
For sure. Worth noting, we talked about the 538. Oh, no, never mind. I'm an idiot. I was like, it was like I said ABC News up in the top right. I was like, are they owned by ABC? I was like, oh, right, Disney. And I was what is happening here? Sorry, I blacked out. I was looking at 538 and just sort of play. So the Seahawks right now, 55% chance of making the playoffs. The Niners have a 99% chance of making the playoffs and a 94% chance of winning the division. If the Seahawks were to win this game, that percentage jumps up to 78%. The Lions dropped to 15%. The Giants dropped to 37%. I mean, the obvious, the ramifications are pretty obvious. A win by Seattle here puts them in such a huge position to make the playoffs. A loss by Seattle drops them down to 34% to make the playoffs. Lions at 25, Giants up at 52. And the Niners, if they win, they actually clinch the division and clinch a playoff spot. So, I think part of those percentages, it's baked into the idea that San Francisco is a 3.5-point road favorite, meaning they're giving them the benefit of the doubt. One of the bigger concerns I have in looking at sort of the trends of what we've seen in the last few weeks with these teams, the Seahawks, the Deebo Samuel factor is real, by the way. The 49ers, 6.2 yards per play with Deebo Samuel on the field in the last 2 years, 5.4 yards per play with him off the field. However, a lot of those games don't feature Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
McCaffrey's been here he's been there 7 weeks. The 49ers are 6-1 since he got there. They're on a 6-game winning streak. McCaffrey in that stretch of time. Yeah, I had it here a second ago. He's basically averaging the second most fantasy points of anybody. He's dominating on the ground. The 49ers are explosive, even with Brock Purdy playing. Most notable, though, for me was Seattle. Over the last 4 games, they're allowing an NFL high 209.5 rush yards per game. I mean, and the Niners run. Like, I have a hard time taking Seattle here.
Yeah.
3.5 points in a division. Now, I do think you can make the case that you in 2022, if you got a game that you're not 100% sure about, like, take the points if it's more than 3, and you're just probably better off taking the points. You should take the points a lot of the times in 2022. However, the 49ers look like a truck, and I don't really want to get in front of that truck.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Again, I like the 49ers in this spot, but if I were to make the case for Seattle, you have one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. It's a kitchen sink game. And as much as I like Brock Purdy, I feel like I keep bashing on him or keep questioning him, but he was a 7th-round draft pick for a reason. Like, there is that narrative of, yeah, he had a great game against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers last week at home. Now you go on the road in one of the more hostile environments in the NFL. How do you respond? I think he should be able to pass the test, but there is that variable where he starts to look more like a 7th-round draft pick than he does this kind of, shocking phenom that we've seen rise up.
Yeah, for sure. And you feel a lot better about if Seattle's defense hadn't been cratering the last few weeks. I mean, it just hadn't been very good. I don't know, man. I want to the fact that, like, the line is trying to move towards 3 because it is plus Seahawks plus 3.5 minus 115, which means it's like edging towards 3 makes me like, I can't see this going closer to a pick, right? I mean, it just makes me I don't know. There's just something, a home dog like this in a division game with their backs against the wall, and
things get wonky sometimes in these games. They do. They just do.
Yeah, it's a Seahawks game.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a Seahawks primetime game. I think I'm probably taking the points here. I'm sure I'll regret it, but I don't care.
Is this technically primetime? Isn't I guess it is, right? Yeah.
It's Thursday night.
Oh, right, Thursday. I'm thinking Saturday. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I was getting my wires.
Get my wires crossed.
No, it's fine. It's week 15. It's
and now they're introducing Saturday games, so I'm going to be all out of whack.
F a Saturday. F a triple header on Saturday. Like, I don't even know that, like, the casual fan wants a triple header on Saturday.
No, I mean,
do they? Like,
I don't.
I mean, I don't for like work, because I mean, like, not like I mean, again, not giving it work. I mean, we're watching football, but it's like,
right. I'd be watching it if I didn't do this, but still.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, I would watch it, but it's like, I think a lot of people are not sitting around watching football on Saturday. Maybe not. I don't know. All right, let's move on. Whatever. The Lions 6-0 against the spread their last 6 games. Sully, massive game for our Lions. You know what we should do? We should steal the Lions from Ryan Wilson. Like, Ryan Wilson claims that he tries to be like the Lions guy. Let's just steal him from him.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I'll take it. We're already kind of wearing Lions colors right now. Look at us.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, I'm wearing my
Detroit. This is a Lions podcast.
This is basically a Lions podcast. Exactly. Anything you notice from the trends of the Lions the last few weeks? They were pick 'em at the Jets, as we noted before. Total 44.5, pretty low.
Yeah, I think the big variable for this game is the status of Mike White. I think that they're assuming that he's going to play, but you can never really know what kind of effectiveness he'll have, obviously, if he's dealing with a rib injury or anything along those lines. I mean, we saw with Justin Herbert a few weeks ago. It's sometimes tough to throw. It's going to be cold up here at MetLife. That's a tough thing to do. And you have a Detroit team that's just firing on all cylinders. Like you said, I mean, they've just been insane. 6-0 against the spread over the last 6 weeks. It's basically since this turnaround. But New York is going to be a tough challenge for them. I mean, this is not a team that is anything to be trifled with on the defensive side of the ball. They are able to go toe-to-toe with you. So as much as Jared Goff went off for 3 touchdowns last week, over 300 yards, that's against the Minnesota Vikings defense that is the worst in the NFL in passing yards allowed. Now you go up against a Jets team who are 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 games following a loss. They do play well in these spots. And again, I don't know if I want to look at Detroit as a losing record, even though they technically are, but the Jets 5-2 against teams with losing records. They're 7-3 against the spread in the last 10 games overall. So just as much as Detroit is trending upward, New York is right there with them. Again, I don't know if they're as hot. I don't think that they're capturing that kind of narrative, but they are very much in the playoff conversation. They're very much a good defense. It's just a question of how effective can Mike White be with his injury.
I was wondering, I wonder if Jared Goff can deal with the cold weather in MetLife Stadium. Then I realized that they've already beaten the Giants in MetLife Stadium this year. In fact, it was just a couple weeks ago, I believe. Right? November 20th. Yeah. Just not that long ago. The temperature, 35 degrees, 21-mile-an-hour wind. Lions win 31-18. A lot of running the ball, I believe. Jared Goff, 17-26 for 165. Jamal Williams had those 3 rushing touchdowns, and Justin Jackson actually ripped off some longer runs as well, plus DeAndre Swift. Like, they pounded the ball on the Giants. That's the one thing, is like, I don't know that you can necessarily do that against the Jets. So the question is, can Jared go? Like, I was trying to find I don't think StatHead somehow doesn't have. You can't. I thought you could search for temperature in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I've tried doing that a couple of times. It's tough to do, but I've seen the stats everywhere, so I don't know.
Right. No, I mean, like, I know you used to be able to do it, but yeah. Anyway, like, the point being is, I do wonder about Jared Goff being forced to go win a game against an elite defense with, Sauce Gardner can cover Amon-Ra Brown. Like, can he go win that game in the cold weather if the Lions can't run the ball effectively? Now, maybe they'll be able to run the ball, because they've got to, I think Quentin Williams should be out for this game, right? You've got to. I mean, he's not done for the year. He's just. Am I wrong?
I don't know if he's out for the year.
No, I don't think he is. Yeah, I'll look at it. But I'm saying, like, you've got the situation where
day to day.
Yeah, he's day to day. So I mean, he's not going to be 100% effective against a good offensive line. Was my point. Is like you're neutralizing part of the Jets' strength in slowing down the run and getting after the passer. The game's a pick 'em, so I don't think Vegas. I don't think anybody really knows. Like you said, Mike White matters a ton here. I would lean towards the Lions, but just the temperature and the Jets' ability to slow down the run has me a little nervous about it.
And one thing that I do think is at least worth bringing up when we're talking about this matchup, there is some familiarity here between the Jets coaching staff and Jared Goff. Obviously, Robert Saleh, the former defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, Jared Goff, obviously famously the quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams. There was some time there where they were going toe-to-toe against one another in that NFC West. Obviously, they're all on different teams. There's different weapons. There might even be completely different offensive play calls in this matchup. But I do wonder if there is some stuff that Saleh can look at and say, hey, listen, we had some success against Goff when we did this, X, Y, Z. Does that help them at all in this game? But the other thing that I was wondering, and I'd like to get your kind of opinion on it, if Mike White came out of that game fully healthy, same result, same everything, it's just he comes out healthy, there's no issue. What is this still a pick 'em?
I think the Jets are maybe like -2.
That's kind of how I felt.
And not that Mike White is worth like tons of
Right.
it's just like I think that the pick 'em line is sort of a hedge of they don't want to make the Jets -2 and then it's Zach Wilson and people pound the Lions because they think that Zach Wilson will screw things up against the Lions defense that's improved dramatically over the last 6 games. And I think Joe Flacco too. Joe Flacco versus Jared Goff is probably a pick 'em with the relative strengths and weaknesses of those two teams. So maybe that's sort of where they're hedging their bets with that particular line. Jets have I mean, I lean Lions. Both teams are desperate, man.
This is, I mean, we talked about it in the press coverage yesterday. This is a massive game for both of these teams. It's funny because Detroit has the longest playoff win drought. New York has the longest playoff drought. Both of these teams are trying to get in it. Obviously, New York last night just got booted, or over the weekend, week 14, got booted out of the number 7 seed. Detroit's on the come up. This is a must-win game for both of these teams. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I actually lean a little bit more towards the Jets. I know that seems a little contrary to be, obviously we got to figure out what happens with the quarterback situation. I'm assuming Mike White plays and he's a 75% Mike White. I still think that might be enough with what that defense is bringing on the other side.
Given that he went to the hospital to get checked out, and by all accounts, not like anything really, really serious, but
he traveled back with the team. They
just wanted to check his ribs and make sure, you don't want to, it's the same thing with Rodgers when he left that game. You want to make sure you don't have a punctured lung. Broken ribs, ribs are sharp when they're broken. And they're they're hanging around a bunch of organs. I was
gonna say, there's a lot of stuff right there that's kind of important.
Yeah. It's very, very tender area in there. So yeah. By the way, Garrett Wilson, 7 games with Zach Wilson, 3.7 receptions per game, 45.6 yards per game. With Joe Flacco and Mike White, 6 games, 6.2 receptions per game, 91.5 receiving yards per game with those quarterbacks. A 17-game pace for Garrett Wilson with Joe Flacco and Mike White. 104 catches, 1,555 receiving yards. It's just an insane.
The favorite for offensive rookie of the year right now.
The defensive rookie of the year. The offensive rookie of the year. Yeah. And they might get both.
They seriously might. Yeah.
Yeah. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson. That if you come away like that, Joe Douglas is feeling pretty good about life. Jets are the only team that rank in the top 6 in pass rush grade, run defense grade, and pass coverage grade according to PFF, which is, again, notable. I might be with you. I might lean a little bit towards the Jets. Like, if the Jets offense can get going at all, the question is, like, has the Lions defense turned a corner, or did the Lions schedule get easier?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the Seahawks defense turned a corner?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to bring up Seattle.
The Seahawks defense is great. And then it's like, wait, no, the Seahawks, same defense.
Yep.
And so Bam Knight, my boy, has been running really well. He's a sleeper to offensive rookie of the year. He'd have to go nuts down the stretch, I think. But yeah. All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, actually, I take that back. We'll do Dallas. We'll do Dallas Jacksonville real quick. Cowboys, Jaguars. Man, tough spot for the Jags. You got a chance to, just knocked off Tennessee in Nashville for the first time since 2013, kept our division hopes alive. Who's next? It's like, oh, cool. The Cowboys. At home, 1:00 game on Sunday. Anything strike your fancy with this game?
Well, my thing is, I just wonder if Trevor Lawrence can keep this up. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind over the last few weeks, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions over the stretch. He has been looking like a number 1 overall pick.
Ryan Wilson.
And we just saw in Dallas, and I think these teams are a little bit similar, maybe for different reasons. But Jacksonville has been frustrating this season because they've shown what we saw last week, and then they'll have like a terrible outing the next. So you don't know what you're getting in this matchup. But Dallas is kind of the same thing. I feel like they always play down to their competition. They are as talented as any team in the NFL. But for whatever reason, 17-point favorites going up against the Texans, and you have 2 Dak Prescott interceptions, and you're on the brink of losing that game, you're able to pull it out. I wonder if this is another one of those scenarios for Dallas where, obviously it's only 4.5, but it's a field goal game, and it's Trevor Lawrence continuing to play at a high level, Dak throwing a few picks, and all of a sudden it's 5 minutes down, and you're trailing by 6 points, and you have to go get a touchdown. That's my concern for Dallas.
The other thing too is, like, you had that game in Houston, and so maybe that's like a wake up scare, but short week after you play the Jaguars, you are back home against the division leading Eagles, your hated rival, your biggest competition, a team who you have to still believe you can catch in the race for the division and the number 1 seed, as much as we don't think it's likely, at home on Christmas Eve at 4:25 p.m. like the prime of all primetime games. Like, I mean, it's like, well, actually, I guess Thanksgiving's more prime, but like, because reasonable people will be at. I mean, not that a lot of people will be at church about 4:25 p.m. Eastern, not in Texas, and not in wherever else Cowboys fans live all over the country. I mean, I'm just like, not that it's a look ahead game, but it is kind of a look ahead game.
Kind of it. I mean, it is.
It doesn't really matter what they do in Jacksonville. You beat I mean, it does. Like, you want to win, but I mean, the Eagles game. Don't you think the Eagles game carries so much more weight than to the Cowboys and to Jerry Jones? Like, let's say, so if they lose. I'm just kind of doing the math here real quick. All right. So if they lose to Jacksonville, it basically eliminates their chances of winning the division. If they beat Jacksonville, then beat Philly, they're still only up to like 16% to win the division. You need a lot of help from Philly. You would have to win 3 straight and Philly goes 1-2, and then it would come down to week 14 where even if, and then Dallas win would clinch it. So,
but even beyond the records and stuff, because both of these teams are making the postseason. This is a more of a, as much as you want to talk about them possibly creeping up to the number 1 seed and winning the NFC East, this is also a statement playoffs down the road type of game. These two played earlier this year, but Dak Prescott wasn't there. This was Cooper Rush, is why he was still sidelined.
It's a
fully loaded message
in the playoffs.
Yeah,
like, we're not scared to beat you in the playoffs type of game. Yeah, if Dallas wins out and Philly drops 2, obviously one of those would be to Dallas, then Dallas would win the division. So, I mean, like, they're very much, under the impression that they can win the division, I think. That's not out of the question at all. If Dallas loses, and that sort of thing is like, I think it's a look-ahead game, is the point being. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll pick some over-unders, favorite of the week, stinky cheese, favorite home dogs, etc. We'll give it the early betting trends awards next.
The UEFA Champions League on Paramount Plus. 9 months of heart-stopping, hold-your-breath exhilaration. That's brilliant! With more magic and more drama. While a former Bavarian nails the back of the net in Barcelona, an American trades his stars with zebra stripes, and a Norwegian creates sky blue spectacles. Oh, so stream every sweat-soaked second of regulation time, stoppage time, and extra time. Beyond magnificent! This is the best of the best of the best. This is the UEFA Champions League. Stream every match live, exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Mentioned the unders. Unders have been hitting at an unprecedented rate. We have a lot of variance this week, although I would point out there are a ton of very low over unders. I see a 36.5 on the board. Repulsive. That is insane. A 38.5, 39.5, 40. This 42. I mean, there's just 37.5. I mean, there's a lot of low totals here. Nothing in the 50s this week, I don't believe. Eagles, Bears, 48.5. Titans, Chargers, 47. Kind of interesting number there. It's pretty high, man. And then Chiefs, Texans, closest one, 49. What say you in terms of your favorite over under of the week, Sully?
Yeah, I'm going to go under 42, and that's in the I'm just checking to make sure that that's correct. Yep, still 42 in the Dolphins-Bills game in Buffalo. We've seen over the last few weeks this Dolphins offense be a little bit sluggish. People are deploying press coverage on their receivers. It's throwing off the timing with Tua Tagovailoa. All of a sudden, you have maybe Tyreek Hill dealing with an ankle injury, might not be playing in this game. And we're also talking weather. Weather could be a factor here. It might snow. I thought I saw up to 7 inches, but who knows? It's going to be cold. And that, to me, I think is going to be the bigger thing for a Dolphins team who needed heaters, reportedly, on the sideline in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium earlier this week. I mean,
what are we doing, guys?
I mean, if you need heaters in 50-degree weather in Los Angeles,
you can't let anybody know you need heaters in California.
It's just, I mean, what's Buffalo going to look like? It's going to be 10 degrees probably.
Well, so the Dolphins are now on a 2-game California road trip straight into a Buffalo road trip. If you spent 6 weeks in Miami and then you live in Miami and you spend, let's say 3 or 4 weeks in Miami, surrounding areas, whatever it is. And then you go and spend 2 weeks in California and then you go and spend a week in Buffalo, New York. Not only is that travel kind of messing you up there a little bit, talk about freaking dealing with just the shock to you. They're going back to Miami, obviously, before they go to Buffalo, but like you couldn't pack for that trip. I mean,
I mean, I'm up here in New England. Every time it's like March and we get like a 47-degree day, I'm popping shorts on. I got a tank top. I'm like, all right, summer's here. Let's do it. Like that's the kind of impact that you have when you're down in the warm climates. All of a sudden you get into those freezing temperatures. It is really a shock, and it's a big advantage for Buffalo in just kind of hammering home the fact the Bills 9-2 the unders hit in the last 11 games. These, as much as we look at the Buffalo having this high-powered offense, and I think this might be a popular play to go over just because everybody it's low. You might expect the Dolphins to get right. Buffalo, I think, just gets perceived as this high-octane offense, which they are, but the under is very favorable in this game. It's hit more often than it's not in Bills games this season. And I think the teams are starting to catch on to how to defend this speedy wide receiver core of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in these last 2 weeks. And I think Sean McDermott's smart enough to see that and use that to his advantage.
Miami team total, by the way, 16.5. And that's pretty low for this, and it's juiced a little bit to the over at minus 115. At under 17, Miami team total, I would like a lot, I think. Buffalo's also been, and I would guess, we talked about this a little bit before the season, how would Sean McDermott's, like Brian Dable had been there for a long time, been there for a while, a few years. Not like Ken Dorsey was going to be told what to do, but like would Sean McDermott have some influence over the play calling because of the change in offensive coordinator? I think maybe it might be, does Sean McDermott have some influence over the play calling because of the injury to Josh Allen and a desire to minimize the number of throws? Like again, we said it in the middle of the season. Like he might only have, maybe they decided he's only got X number of throws left. Let's run the ball. Let's be a running team, melt the clock, play some defense. And, you sort of see it with these unders hitting with them. I kind of like that too. As you point out with the weather, it looks like Buffalo is going to get snow Friday, Saturday, Sunday of some kind, 30% basically throughout the time, 16-mile-an-hour winds peaking out on Saturday when they play, because this is a Saturday game. 8:15 p.m. I mean, it's going to be cold as hell at 8:15 p.m. when this game kicks off.
Absolutely.
It's looking like, what was it like? Oh my God, 29 degrees. I mean, dude, I'm with you. I think the under's a good look there. Wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how far it can come down just because these two teams are explosive on offense.
Right.
But you're right. To me, like you look at this game, you're like 42. That's going way over. My favorite total of the week. Just looking at it. Let's see. I had a couple. Some of these really low totals are kind of interesting, from like Steelers and Panthers at 38.5. I mean, I'm just not sure how either of those teams is going to score. Like, it's hard for me to fathom a 21-17 final. Well, actually, I can fathom that because that's still under. But like a 24-17 final. Does that get over? 41, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, who scored 21? Trubisky? Pickett?
Mason Rudolph, maybe?
Sam Darnold? I don't know. The other one that's like even kind of more interesting from just a ridiculously low total that I kind of want to go under anyway. Cardinals Broncos. 36.5.
You're talking two backup quarterbacks probably in that game. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson, but
I thought you meant Russell's a backup. Yeah. Do we think Russell's going to play?
Well, he's in the concussion protocol, so that's
right. Yeah.
So he has to.
My threes in the concussion protocol.
I'll tell you this though, Colt McCoy looked good last night against the Patriots, and that's a good defense. I know he had a couple of turnovers, and the offensive line's a huge issue.
Time back there,
but the offensive line's a huge issue. But he was not the reason they lost that football game. And you're going. Denver's defense is still solid, but I don't know. You're going from Kyler Murray to Colt McCoy. That's not as steep of a drop off, I think, as some other teams going to their backup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I will go with final choice. What final choice? I think I'm going to take the Panthers and Steelers under 38.5. I just don't see a lot of points in that game.
Sure.
All right. Favorite home dog of the week. Looking at those home dogs, we have Seahawks plus 3.5. The Jets technically a pick 'em, so we'll count that. The Texans plus 14. The Bears +9 against the Eagles. Bucks +3.5 against the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's it. Not a whole lot of dogs. I mean, some home dogs, but not a ton.
Man, we got Raiders and Patriots too. Raiders.
I see Raiders -1.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got Raiders +1.
Oh, weird.
Maybe
By
that's
the time I'm looking at the CBS page, I think it's slow to update. So,
yeah. I got
Raiders plus Patriots counts for sure.
Yep.
The Josh McDaniels revenge game.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels revenge game. Again, I feel like I'm a broken record talking about the Patriots offense like this, but we watched it last night. It's still not good. They had one good drive with the Hunter Henry 39-yard catch after the interception. Outside of that, the narrative was going to be Mac Jones dropping F-bombs at Matt Patricia and this offense continuing not to look great. The offensive line's an issue. Max Crosby and Chandler Jones are probably going to be able to feast on these tackles. I just don't know if they can get lucky again with this defense. And luck's probably a little too harsh of a word.
No, they got pretty lucky against Arizona. I mean, they got handed gift wrap like
a scoop and score because DeAndre Hopkins, for whatever reason, holds
the ball like Shady McCoy.
Like the weirdest and just totally not coached the right way.
Flipping it up in the air like as he's running.
It's like I'd be holding like a Nerf football. It just does not make sense why he would do that. But again, that's how the Patriots win these games. When the teams make mental mistakes, they capitalize. Raiders are obviously capable of making those types of mistakes. We've seen them do it. I mean, just last week, they make plenty of mistakes. They lose to Baker Mayfield for 2 days being with the Rams. They lose to Jeff Saturday. This team is perfectly capable of losing games. But I do wonder, there's a lot of inside knowledge with Mac Jones in this offense, with Josh McDaniels on the other side. Does that help them even more shut down that offense? And so for me, you're talking about guys getting hurt on the other side. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen with Jack Jones. He left that game, but he's been their best corner, arguably. Jalen Mills wasn't able to play last night. If all of a sudden you're talking about Marcus Jones playing up against Devontae Adams,
yeah.
That's not.
I mean, Adams is gonna. I mean, like we saw it with Hopkins too last night. Like Adams is going to get doubled all night, all day long. I mean, do you think that Belichick's knowledge of what McDaniels wants to do on offense is this like a 40 chess match? Sort of a, you know what I'm saying? Like
possible. It's possible. I wonder, does just the talent win out? Like, yeah, okay, we know what you're doing, but
yeah, we
actually can execute it. We have players that can rise above it. I mean, we don't know what Damian Harris's thigh injury is going to be. We don't know what Ramondre Stevenson's ankle injury is going to look like. So you're talking about Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris again leading that backfield because the Patriots want to run the football.
Oh yeah.
It's not. It just feels like a tough situation for me to believe in them unless this defense just continues to dominate and score points on their own.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars, the aforementioned Jacksonville Jaguars, +4.5 at home against the Cowboys. Cowboys are explosive, but Trevor Lawrence is playing well. I think Doug Peterson's got it rolling, and I think Jacksonville's got, like, coming off that Titans win, come back home, playing the Cowboys. I think that crowd is going to be electric. Yeah. You know, you're talking about Christmas time, so there's not going to be, I don't think there'll be like a ton of Cowboys fans traveling to Jacksonville to watch the game. I guess, shorter Christmas, but I think Jacksonville, I think that stadium will be lit up. I think the Jaguars defense, even though it hasn't been great, will come to play against Dallas. The Cowboys are scoring more points than anyone in the NFL since Dak came back, but he's also been up and down in terms of some of the throws he's made. And maybe Dallas gets the win, but like Jacksonville has more to play for in this game than the Cowboys do. As we point out, Cowboys are looking ahead to the Christmas Eve game against Philly. And Jacksonville is thinking, if we win this game and the Titans lose to the Chargers, like this division is extremely wide open. Titans are 86% to win 85% to win the division right now. A loss plus a Jaguars win would move the Jags to 40% to win, or 39% to win the division. Like you're giving yourself a real shot to win the division if you can steal this game. And the Titans still have to play Dallas as well. They both get Houston, they both get Dallas. Like if you assume that the Cowboys can beat the Titans, you assume both teams, you want to get it to where you're playing the Titans in week 18 and the winner gets the division.
And we talked about it a little bit. Trevor Lawrence is playing his best football since he's entered the NFL. Over the last 5 weeks, you're talking about a guy that's completed nearly 72% of his passes, has a 111.7 passer rating, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's rushed for a touchdown. And it's not like he's going up against bad defenses either. Like, it's the Raiders, it's Kansas City, it's Baltimore, it's Detroit, who's been playing well. We just were talking about them. And Tennessee's nothing to squawk at either. I mean, he is playing like a number 1 overall pick, the clear-cut guy that we thought he was going to be coming out last year. Obviously, the Urban Meyer situation kind of threw it all out of whack. But under Doug Peterson, things are starting to click. And if he can continue this hot streak against Dallas, that's certainly live. And like you were saying too, Dak Prescott been a little loose with the football since he's been back. Obviously, a couple of interceptions last week. If that continues, you're going to give a white-hot Trevor Lawrence short fields. Right now, that feels like an automatic touchdown.
Yeah, feel like they're playing good football. So yeah, I agree with you. I think I like the Jaguars as home dog. All right, stinky cheese of the week. I'm sure. I mean, I think the Niners qualify. Because I think that when we say stinky cheese, what we mean is like a line that just smells funny and like makes you wonder. Like if you ask the average person on the street, what that's obvious. Certainly the Seahawks 49ers minus 3.5 qualifies. That game qualifies. The line to the Jets is a pick'em qualifies. I mean, I don't know if the Texans qualify. Backup quarterbacks are not exactly a great spot for this either. Bengals minus 3.5, I think, is pretty interesting because I think 90% of the population would pick the Bengals right now. And that's Commanders minus 4.5, maybe too.
That's gonna be mine. That kind of feels a little odd. I mean, you're talking about a team their last game was against the Giants in MetLife Stadium, and they were laying 2.5 points.
Yeah.
So going home, that's only 2 points?
Yeah, it should be like a 6-point swing, technically, home field advantage. And, like I heard, I think it was like SVP on Monday night, they tossed up the early lines, and he said, we had like Ryan Clark on there. He's like, Giants at Commanders. Commanders minus 4.5. He's like, no one is going to be on the Giants. I think he said, and he said, I will. Which is like, I mean, it is like, you're like, well, the Giants stink and the Commanders are white hot. 4.5.
It just, that feels like a weird number, especially when we might see Saquon Barkley limited down the stretch here with that neck issue. It's like we're saying, nobody's healthy for them. They just got blown out by Philadelphia. I
think the Jaguars would actually qualify as stinky cheese too, technically, but
sure, yeah.
If you're like Cowboys, the Cowboys, they're 10 wins. So yeah, I think that's your pick. I think that's a good pick. I'll take the Seahawks.
Okay.
In other words, like you're saying, like you like the Giants. You like the Giants, and you don't have to pick them. I don't care what you pick, but it's like you like the Giants more than maybe the public. You think the Giants is a smelly line. Like it makes you think like maybe the Giants is the play. I think the 49ers Seahawks line is like, even with Brock Purdy, when teams are trending like that in the opposite direction, and then you lay this little 3.5 out there, it's like, that's it. It's got to be by 3.5 points. I don't know. I mean,
that's that. Yeah, exactly. That's them going fishing right there.
Yeah, would not be surprised if the Seahawks won this game. All right, that'll do it for us. Good stuff, Sully. Nada producing for Sully. I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you guys later.